Okay, so for fun today, I thought we could start. I'm not sure, I haven't really focused in on it, but I think a number of you were here last time. I had to go back and look because it felt like it's been forever, but I think it was November when I shared some of this information back. So I'd be curious to take just a couple minutes, hear a little bit about what, if anything, sticks. And then I have a fun quiz of a whole 4 questions I wanted to share, and a couple of slides to go back to some of the points and homework. So before you roll your eyes at me, I am that quiz and homework and all those are just kind of a playful way to get us talking. And there is so much amazing experience and resources in this group that using some of these tools to get you all having opportunities to share with each other and share the information that you have yourself. So not going into a deep conversation, I would be curious, just for one or two people to kind of share what, if anything, do you remember all the way from back in November? And I'm going to pause for a second. I know it's been a long time.
Might be nice to give us a hint.
The 4 stages of
Oh,
competence.
very awesome. That's actually one of the things I'm coming back to today. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I use it to try to explain to my poor student when they're starting to get frustrated that they're supposed to be getting frustrated, because that actually shows they're having a better insight to the difficulty as well as their understanding of what's now involved, and that some competence will occur eventually, but be patient.
I love it.
And
Oh,
I gave the whole presentation to our whole Adams Forge group,
oh
kind
wow.
of going through what are you focusing on at each point, whether, trying not to kill yourself, encourage them endlessly, and then finally, when they're really starting to get good, deal with how they could be better, but you don't start with that. So it was incredibly insightful for our group. So we loved it.
Oh, that touches my soul. I love to hear that. How exciting. Anyone else have anything they remember?
Well, I'll add a thing about the difference between adult versus kid or child, inexperienced, life experienced person, and the way their learning approaches differ.
I love it because that's another part I'm looping back to. So I'm glad those points kind of stuck with us or with you. I do. Yep. Real quick. So Michael, if you're back there, he has prepped a little poll again, just to sort of stir up the noggin a little bit late on a Wednesday evening. Bring some of those questions back. There we go. All the questions are together. Let me see. This looks different. Zoom is always updating. Oh, I guess you can. I was going to do them one by one, but it looks like we have them all together. So just for humor and for fun and to get us thinking and talking, if you can indulge me, this should be, I didn't set it up, so this should be all anonymous. So for fun, if you want to answer this poll, the first question is a true or false. Becoming a better blacksmith naturally leads to increased ability to teach your blacksmith skills. And number two, whoops. Well, here we go. I guess that kind of really already answers number one for you. Why can teaching be harder for a highly skilled blacksmith? And number three, which of the following is not true about how adults learn differently than children? And number four there, if you have to, you kind of, I know on mine I had to scroll down a little, but I'm on a laptop, so I don't know how it displays on your screen. Why is it important to break up demonstrations into smaller parts? So if you're up to it, go ahead and answer. I'm going to answer for fun too. I'll skew us a little bit. Some of these things are things that you already brought up. So I don't know, Michael, if you can see on your end what the answers look like, but we're probably pretty good to, I imagine, post the results. How did we do?
Give me 1 second. We are almost done.
Okay.
You want me to read the answers back to you?
Sure. Does it let you post the results?
Let me see if I can do that.
I always think that's fun.
End poll. Share results.
There we go. Woohoo. Let's see. We're well, 2/3, one third, 2/3 on the first one. Becoming a better blacksmith naturally leads to increased ability to teaching blacksmith skills. So while you definitely, and we'll kind of go back into that, definitely you need to know the content. But one of the reasons I keep coming back is talking a little bit about being intentional about also developing your instructional skills, because being a great blacksmith doesn't necessarily naturally lead into being a great blacksmith instructor. So we'll go into that a little bit more. And why can it be hard? Why? Let me scroll up here so I can get all my answers. It looks like the top two were about 3/4, 1/4-ish. Why can it be teaching often be harder for highly skilled smiths? They're not used to working with beginners. That could be true if you think about the number. The second answer there was really the answer I was looking for, because it's hard to notice and explain things that you do so automatically. So much of it has become, you've gotten to this point of automaticity, even when you think you're breaking it down. For true beginners, it's, they're at such a different level. You think you've broken it down, but it's, everything comes so naturally, you don't realize how much more things need to be broken apart. Let's see, which of the following is not true about how adults learn differently from children? So we're a little spread all over, but adults, that second answer there, oops, sorry, nope. The third answer there, adults bring a lot of past experience, which sometimes can help the learning, but sometimes can hinder it. So I think someone touched on that before, and that is an area I'm coming back to and sharing a slide. And why is it important to break up demonstrations? Oh, you 100% you guys rocked this one. It helps increase their understanding and retention. So I just did that as a little fun way to kind of get the juices going and bring us back to oops, let me get back on here. Some of the things we talked about. So just in case you weren't here with us before, one of the things we talked about and was kind of returned to in the quiz we did is that concept of being able to do something and being able to teach something are really two different skill sets. You certainly need to know how to do the thing. You need the content knowledge, but learning the teaching part is something that you need to focus on and really try and develop intentionally. It just doesn't naturally blossom. So being a blacksmith and teaching a blacksmith are two related, but definitely separate skill sets. And as we talked about kind of in the little quiz there, that sometimes even, the more skilled you are as a smith, the more challenging it can be to really be able to remember what it was like in the beginning days. So much comes naturally that you forget what you know, right? How much you know and how much comes naturally there. So that's kind of why we took a little bit of time focusing on not just not talking about how to teach the skill specifically, but more a little bit about how adults learn and what to keep in mind and consider. So there's those 4 stages. I think Gary, that was you that came back to. So we talked about this previously, the different stages that really people, but particularly adults, go through when they're acquiring a new skill. So stage 1 being that unconscious incompetence, right? That's the brand new student that comes in, they've watched all the Forged on Fire, they're going to come in, they're going to knock out this big sword and show everybody how it's done. And then they start kind of getting into it and hopefully have that realization. They stick with it long enough. They don't have their ego hurt and they disappear, but they stick with it long enough to get to that point of, wow, there's a lot more to this than I appreciated coming in. So then they get into that conscious incompetence, right? They don't have the skills yet. And they're really becoming aware of, this is something that's going to take some time and I need to invest some of myself into. So that's kind of that critical point where we sometimes lose our students because it can feel a little bit overwhelming or discouraging. But hopefully we continue to support them into stage 3, that conscious competence. At that stage, they're starting to get some skills. As you're working with them and with the instructor again, you're kind of working up their level and the expectation, and ideally helping move them into that stage 4 where they really are starting to get to that level of mastery and things come naturally to them and it's intuitive. So since the conversation today was about our wonderful penny scroll, or Hey Penny, I was curious to hear your thoughts that, it's a level 2 skill. So really you could be working with students all over the range, but what area would you imagine you're probably working with when you're working on the penny scroll? There's no right or wrong answer. I have assumptions, but what would be your thoughts?
3,
I heard a 3.
conscious competence.
That's what I thought. That's where I fell as well. So I'll skip us right over there. So probably as you're working on this skill, right, your students have gone through level 1. They have some basic skills. They're refining those basic skills. They're learning some of these new, slightly more technical pieces. And again, they're starting to understand the theory, but they're still really having to think through the steps and the process. But they're starting to be able to pull things off pretty consistently. So kind of looping back as a reminder at this stage, that's where, again, you're starting to introduce some of these more complex skills. Before, maybe you were not worrying as much about how well their technical proficiency, right? But now we're kind of boosting that up a little bit, raising the bar on them a little bit. Definitely switching from directly guiding them to pulling back a little bit and letting them problem solve and help them with some guiding questions and help them learn how to work through these problems. So as they gain their skill, they can do that more independently. And typically at this stage is when you're encouraging them to take their skills and start to put them together and execute their own designs. But if we're talking curriculum here, of course, that one that might not apply if we're talking about our penny scroll, because when we are teaching curriculum, of course, there are very specific objectives, and it is a skill-based activity. So when I was thinking about this level 3 and conscious competence and thinking about some of the concepts about how adults learn and things we've talked about in the past, I was trying to think, what are 2 main pieces of that theory that really would apply to this stage 3 conscious competence? And I wanted to return back to the idea that someone else had already shared, so it must have rung a bell with them, about how the experience adults bring to your lesson can possibly help or even sometimes hinder learning. And then that whole illusion of knowledge. So just as a reminder, you've seen this slide before, that idea of you can be very clear and you can break things down, but because of that background knowledge that everybody brings to the table, they may interpret and see and think of things differently. So sometimes you're working with your students and you see, most of them seem to be right on track, but there's those few that just seem off and you can't figure out where the disconnect is. And it could be just that difference of the background knowledge that they have. So maybe some of your students have very shared and aligned experiences, so they connect and what you're saying connects the way you feel like you're sharing it. But maybe others, have had very different experiences. So it's almost like we're walking around with this filter. So everything that we take in comes through this filter of all of our life experiences, and that's how we process it. And of course, this is a funny image here with hammers. Not that you'd be talking about hammers with your level 2, but maybe the guy down there on the bottom was hearing hammer, just using it as a graphic example, and thinking, I put together IKEA furniture, and they're thinking they're mallet, or maybe a claw hammer, or my favorite one, in case you don't get the reference, the little dancer on top there, of course, is 80s hip hop icon MC Hammer. But digging a little bit deeper, that idea of that experience that the adults bring, it's almost like everybody has their library of learning from their experiences and their knowledge, and different people are going to have different books on their shelf. So there's similarities, but not necessarily always connecting. You're also, I think when we spoke last time, we had a great conversation after the slides, and I know I heard a common theme of the habits, right? The habits that people bring in. So sometimes they can really help. Sometimes they're really challenging to overcome. And even if they're not related to blacksmithing, I've noticed, people smithing for the first time. I've noticed women who have jewelry experience, even if they haven't hammered, that always translates. That they don't necessarily themselves see how that translates. They think, oh, I don't have any experience, but consistently I see that connection. And then also the why does it matter to me? Part of that connection and them hearing that those bottom two pieces there is being able to connect what you're saying to things they already know and believe. Whether that's making sure it's meaningful so they pay attention that their brain registers it, or sometimes the opposite of that, that they think, oh, I already know this. So they already have a concept and a belief of what you're saying. So they hear it differently, which is always an interesting experience. So thinking about this concept of adult learners, some strategies that you can use are getting the conversation going. So find out what they already know. So when you're first starting out, you could do a quick quiz. I say quiz, but also I think I don't have a slide for it, but when you are working with adults, it's so important to not have them feel like you are teaching to them as a child. So, again, be always having fun with it, always interacting, making it engaging and interactive is important. So I really bolded the casual conversation, having that conversation and asking questions and getting the group talking before you start presenting or demonstrating is so helpful because it lets you know maybe where there are some misconceptions. Maybe somebody saw a YouTube video and had an idea that maybe doesn't necessarily apply, or maybe they have an idea about something, and as you're instructing, you can tap into that because you know it's going to connect with that student. Using learners as experts, you always have people who want to share their knowledge, and often do have great things to contribute. Even if they can't contribute something, or that they may not be an expert in the technique you're teaching or even smithing itself, they're the expert of what it's like at that moment to be a new student in your class, right? Experiencing all of that. So you can always learn something from the people that you're teaching. And definitely providing diverse and explicit examples. Another way to tap into that prior knowledge. The more different ways you can say or show something, the more likely you're going to connect with somebody's book in their library. So again, different books. So if you vary it up, and explicit examples, not just of here's what we're trying to do, but here are some common errors. That's helpful for students as they're trying to work through some of these new skills. So shifting over to illusion of knowledge, illusion of knowing, our brains are just crazy things. So there's this, there's a challenge that we have sometimes. So we see something, we think we understand it. You're demonstrating it. You've seen it demonstrated 5 times. You feel like you know it. So this little video here, this little graphic, the instructor, you got it. The student's like, yeah, I got it. But then they walk back to their forge and realize, wait a minute, no, I don't. So again, our brains are funky things. They've a strong sense of familiarity can feel like learning, can feel like you know it, but there are even different parts of your brain that the exposure and familiarity and recognition is one part, whereas recalling and doing and producing is a totally different part. So in fact, the more exposure you have, the more confident you feel like you know something. It's not until you have to produce it that you realize where the gaps are. So one of the, looking at testing yourself, or the retention, just recalling significantly helps your brain lock in that information. Even just recalling once will help lock in new information over 50% compared to multiple exposures. So by trying it out and making those mistakes, again, making the mistake as you're trying to work through it kind of cues your nervous system to really zone in and pay attention, and is really, believe it or not, a powerful learning tool. So with that in mind, some strategies you can use would be kind of explain it back checks. And again, done in kind of a natural, engaging, interactive way, but throughout the demonstration, somehow, rather than always be you talking, find ways to engage the students and have them explain some of the concepts back to you. Definitely chunking things. I think particularly as instructors work with more advanced students, there's a natural tendency to feel like they have a certain level of skill. So we're just going to go through the whole demo and then let them go off to their forges and then walk them through. And, you know, depending on the project, that might be appropriate, but there's still a lot of value, even for more advanced students, to break it down and chunk it and let them work through that piece so their brain can really lock in some of that new learning. And then another strategy too is give them an explicit kind of almost self-assessment checklist, or a checklist of these are the things you're looking for that show you that you're on track and you're kind of heading the right direction, or that you're meeting that objective, and maybe even some of the things to look for to show that you're you know, not meeting that objective. So the do's and the don'ts in a quick manner. So using an example, I want to ask your thoughts. Using that last example of a self-assessment checklist, if you were teaching the penny scroll and you were saying, these are the things you're looking for, these are the things you don't want to have happen, I'd be curious what your checklist would look like. So I'm going to be quiet and let some of you chime in.
Well, maybe we'll do that after Mark talks.
Okay, I'll pop through that one then. My last slide then is what I'm hoping. I would love if you would indulge me, do this little piece of homework, which would be consider trying one of these strategies intentionally with one of your groups. And as you're thinking ahead of time, intentionally meaning thinking ahead of time, if you're going to engage in a conversation, think about the skill you're teaching. What kind of questions are you going to ask? How are you going to engage your group to get some of that that early learning and understanding? Or how am I going to have them explain things back to me in a natural way? And anyway, try one of those strategies and then make some notes, whether they're mental or even literal written ones. I would love to come back and hear how it went for you, what you thought was helpful. Again, I think the most powerful learning is when groups like this are sharing with each other their strategies and things that work and don't work, and being able to ask each other questions. So when we come back next, it would be great if we were able to have this conversation.
So I'm going to look at the halfpenny scroll. You're seeing that screen?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. What you're going to be, if you're teaching this, you are going to be relying on the fact that your level 1 student has made the flux spoon, and that ability to move material around, to put it where you want, to get that disc in the flux spoon is going to be key to getting this shape. You've obviously got to put the bits in the right places, but that ability to use a rounding hammer and push the material around is key. And so when I teach the flux spoon, I certainly put a lot of effort in to have people manipulating this stock, because it comes back many times. So let's move on a little bit. This is what it's, This is what it's all about. This is a halfpenny, which is a half penny, not a penny. It is exactly dead nuts on 1 inch in diameter. It's currently out of vogue. I think we took them off the market in the 60s, maybe 67, something like that. We came in with our new decimal system. But that is the halfpenny, and that is Britannia sitting on a rock. Now, it is a halfpenny snub end scroll. It belongs in the snub end. There are 2 snub end scrolls. There is the halfpenny snub end scroll and the solid snub end scroll, both of which you can use for other applications. The solid snub end scroll, typically I will drill and then broach. Broach takes a round drilled hole and makes it square, or whatever shape broach you've got, to a very exact dimension, and I can make door hardware out of these. So just because it's on a scroll here doesn't mean to say it has to finish on a scroll. There's a couple of bits that I like to see when I am looking at a student work. One is, and if you can see let's see if I can get a laser pointer here. I'd like to see this devoid of cracks. Typically you'll get a crack and it makes a curve down here somewhere. You can certainly install that, but if that goes out in the weather, it's just going to rust off. It's not going to hold on. So I like to see that reasonably clean. You know, I'll accept a little bit, but If it's got a great big crack in there, that's, as Victoria likes to say, it's an opportunity to have another go. And then the other thing is that I like the scroll to taper all the way from parent stock all the way through to the end. We'll talk about this towards the end of the show a little bit, but if I have this neck, you know, hitting, if the neck is 1/4 inch, let's call it 5/16, knocking this down to 1/8 without damaging this is going to be impossible, or difficult, should we say. And so this is going to be much thicker than the forward end. So I do want a taper going through the stock. This is a twisted scroll. You're going to have to twist that little flag of material through 90 degrees. So I just want you to know that as we go into this, it will help to explain why we're doing what we're going to do in the next few steps. So here we go. I'm going to lay off as much of the bar as the bar is wide, in this case 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch by 1/4 will give you a 1 inch diameter halfpenny scroll. There are times when you might want to go a little larger than that. I've seen them made from inch by 1/4, but no, as soon as you go to inch by 1/4, you're stepping away from our favorite 3:1 ratio. So when you come down here, you're going to have a lot more lipping and cupping, etc. When you go to inch by 1/4. Just be aware of it. You can deal with it, just be aware of it. Now, I've worked over a radius edge because sometime in the future, we're going to manipulate this flag and try and make it round. And if we've got a super sharp corner in here, we're going to call that a stress riser. And a stress riser, once we hit it the wrong way, which is easy to do with this, is going to cause a crack. So initially, I want you, when you do your layoff, I want you to lay off over a nice radiused or soft edge on the offside edge of the anvil. Once you get good at this, you can, in the same heat, turn the neck and make it round. Remembering we're twisting this, so if I make it round, I can twist it without leaving too many clues. If I leave it square, then I'm going to have a lot of clues that I've twisted it. So the first thing I want you to do is neck it down. I want you to neck it down until this, the neck right here, becomes square. And it's going to become about 3/8 of an inch square. And you can see that by holding it at 45 degrees. And if the two sides look even, then you've got a square, squarish anyway. Then we're going to do the typical square octagon round. The only difference for me is I'm only going to work from this back side. I do not work from this shoulder side for fear of dinging this and creating something I don't want. So I'm only going to work from the back side. I don't have to make the best round. I just have to make it round-ish. So I'm going to do my octagon, and then I'll take these stripes off and I will make it to my round. And you can see I've got about, if this is 3/4 of an inch here, you can see I've got about 3/4 of an inch that I'm going to call round. Then we're going to twist, and I know you can see the some of the octagon there is twisted. That's fine, it's going to come out. When you twist, I'm going to ask that you cover that whole flag with your pair of tongs or whatever it is. Now you can lock this in the vise and twist up here, that's fine. But if this is sticking out, I don't just want you to put a pair of scrolling tongs across the middle here and twist, because if you do that, as you twist, what's going to happen, you can see this little bit of the twist here. Well, it's going to come all the way back into here to where your scrolling tongs are touching. And that can sometimes be difficult to get out. So if you cover that with your tongs and twist, you twist just in the bit that you've made round. And that is so much easier to deal with. It's just a question of choosing the right tongs when you make the twist, or the right tool. Okay, here we go. So we've twisted, and now we're going to redress our taper. We have 3 times to dress our taper. The first being when we created it, this being the second, and then we'll have one more go to redo the taper. And so don't take this to the best taper. Certainly don't take it to the thinnest neck that you want. Leave that, leave an extra bit of mass in there just for the moment. We can take care of it later. but leave it in there as insurance over the next couple of steps when we're going to be manipulating this flag. So the first thing I do, I go from my twisted stock, and if I go to the right here, you can see I'm just starting to flatten that. Bottom left, you can see I'm dressing the sides. Bottom right, here's my sides dressed. And then in the middle here, I'm just knocking off the corners. Again, you've got one more time to do this, so this doesn't have to be the best work that you can do, but it's nice if it's all proportional. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing this next bit. This first bit is my preferred way. And if I look at your result here, you can see that my top side is my longest side. My next longest side is my original 3/4 of an inch. And this bottom side is my shortest. And I need to make this round. And so if I want to make the best round, I have to make the best square. So I need to deal with that disparity. So the first thing I'm going to do is with my hammer, and I'm not coming in straight on this. I've got a brushing sort of technique. I'm just trying to knock this corner and knock it down a little bit. Take something off here and move it onto the end. And that's what I've hopefully done here in this bottom left slide. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to hold it on the anvil, and I'm going to take this corner. Note the angle of the hammer. I'm just aiming for the corner, and I'm going to knock that. And as I knock that in, I'm going to slowly lower the angle of my hammer. So you can see the angle has changed here. There was my initial hit, and now I've changed the angle of my hammer as I'm starting to pull that material into the center of this disc, or what will become the disc. Now, another method you could do, and this is, I certainly do this when I'm doing the solid snub end scroll, is to actually bend away from your original neck, or shoulder, shall I say, and then upset. So here we are, top left. This is your twist, you've dressed the twist, and now we're going to bend away from the shoulder to the top right. This is what we've got. Don't take it to 90 degrees. 90 degrees again gives you stress risers, or the opportunity to create stress risers. Leave it open of 90 degrees. And then we're going to bring it back. Note this is flat, doesn't have to be flat. You can have it at a slight angle if you want, but don't make it too much of a jaunty angle. Remembering we're trying to get this 90 degrees to, or close to 90 degrees to the shaft here. And this shoulder, we're going to drive this down until this engages with the anvil. And that is the same shoulder right there. And we've flattened that out. And now you can see we've got our mass. And then we just go back to where we were before and start to upset that. Again, do this at a good heat. We've got only 1/4 of an inch here. This is 3/4 of an inch or so, maybe a little more now. So make sure you've got a good heat so that your upsetting blow goes all the way through to the other side. Here I am just following on. So I'm just upsetting it. You can see I've got a good upset. I've got some upset here and here. Now I'm going to flatten it. And you'll cycle through this. It's not a one-time deal. Just cycle through it until you eventually get to something that's reasonably square. Now things start getting interesting. What I want you to do is we're going to, you can do this a variety of ways. I work off the offside edge of the anvil. You could probably do this on the face of the anvil. It's just that your tong hand would be beneath your forging stock. And I tend to shy away from that. So I like my tong hand above my stock. So I'm working on the offside edge. What's important to me is you keep this neck away from the edge of the anvil. Note that I'm working over a soft edge. So I'm not going to put any dings in here, because as you drive this in, this is going to, the neck is going to get closer, as you can see here, to the edge of the anvil. So start with it a good way away. Don't start with it next to the anvil, otherwise you're going to be having problems. Let me go back. Sorry, I've not finished there. I want you to drive in. We've said this is upsetting, but you can see from here that I have more of a flat on this side and a little less of a flat on this side. And I want this to be uniform. So the way I deal with this is, as soon as I've got this to where I like it, I'm going to take this, put it on the anvil, and I'm going to work the inside to make those equal, or as equal as I can get. Next, we're going to rock backwards and forwards, and this is just going from square. This is the square sides. Now we're going to go to octagon. So we're going to take off this corner and this corner equally. So we'll knock those in, and then we'll do the other two corners. Again, bear in mind, we want to be careful where that edge is, so you're not dinging your scroll neck. And I want, when finished, I want you to have this nice lozenge shape. If you can't see that lozenge shape, a nice curve in there, then take some steps to get it. What I have not done is dress this increase in mass. I am leaving that until I go on my fishing trip with the flux spoon type stuff. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. Others will remove it, and that's fine. I can't say anything against that. It's just I don't. I leave it there, and I'll claim it if I need it later on. Same again, whatever you do over here, that round, do the same over here. Make sure they're equal, get that nice lozenge shape. All right, let's talk about wheels and mud. So I've got a little clump of mud here, and that I want to equate to that soft edge of the anvil when we first started. We're making our disc. We're going to have to roll up our disc now to get it to a point where we make the halfpenny. And in rolling up, if we roll up over that soft edge, the material that we left, what's going to happen is, yes, we'll diminish the mud one way or the other, but we're going to be left with this gap either very close to or as the wheel rolls over the mud, quite a deep gap. That gap is not what we want. So this mud, this soft, or the material that we left there with the working off the soft shoulder, soft edge of the anvil, that has to go away. So I want this. I want a nice sharp transition. And so you can see I've got rid of the mud here. I have forged this. This is still open. I can get in to work this. So I'm going to use a half face blow, and I'm just going to send this down. There's the mud under my wheel, and I'm just sending it down. I'm getting rid of the mud. It doesn't have to be dead sharp. It just has to be reasonably sharp. And reasonably sharp to me is baling wire, something like that. So now we've got to here. Now we're going to roll up this lozenge, and just the same way as we with square corners, etc., we do not take it to 90 degrees. I'm going to leave it till 90 degrees for the last possible instant. Bear that in mind. Last possible instant, 90 degrees. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to bring it up. So here is 90 degrees. If the tip were out here, I'd be 90 degrees to my little transition. And you can see I am open of just the same way as we deal with upset square corner bends. And then I'm going to send this down, and I'm creating the flat, my square. And then we're going to have to deal with these two corners. And this is where I said, you know, remember our last thing we do is take it to the square. So if I hit this corner first as I dress it, I'm going to be taking this to my square. If I hit this corner first, I've still got a generous radius in here. I'll open it up. I can take this corner off, and then I can play with this corner second and get this to square. If I do this one first and get this to square, it's going to be a lot sharper because it's an upsetting move. When I come to do this inside one here, you're going to open out that stress riser and you're going to find a crack. So for me, I take this corner first and then I do this one second. And you can see I'm holding it now. I've got a bit of a jaunty angle, and I'm trying to work with this corner that I created. When I set this down, there had to be a bit of a flat on the back. So I've got two corners, this one and this one. So I'm trying to deal with them both at the same time, thus the jaunty angle. Once you've done both of those, and again, this comes back to the neck, I've got the ball face of the hammer here. I'm going to hit this and I'm going to spread it just the same way as I would with the flux spoon and try and get the round that I want. But I can't drop the ball face of the hammer back here, otherwise I'm going to damage the neck. So I need to be careful how I work. And that's, here, there you go, the neck. And you can see I have got a ding in there, but I've tried to keep it to a minimum. You can see the difference in thickness here to the difference in thickness here. And yet we've still got, by doing everything we did, by keeping it open of 90 degrees, we have got, or starting to get, our round shape. So here's the shape we've got. We've got no cracking, hopefully, just at the root here. We've got a taper from the back of the halfpenny all the way to the front, and it goes all the way through up to the taper to parent stop. Now we've got a little bit of an issue. We've made the best round that we can. If you want to make a better round, you can, I think this is shown in the Coursera books, they've made something like this. And you can just take this, let me see if I've got a picture here. So I'm going to heat my halfpenny up. I'm going to quench this. Everything to the left of the line here is cold. Everything to the right is hot. And you can drive this. This is 1 inch bottom swage. And this curve at the top, if you drive this in, you can capture this halfpenny and you can actually start to create your scroll. So that's why that is slightly curved. Not my favorite method of dealing with it. I made this and I've not used it. I prefer this. What we had originally, that to me is going to be fine. I would give that a pass, hopefully. So here's my scroll. Now here's our problem. So let's have a look at the top right. This is just a normal ribbon scroll. And remember, we feed a little bit out and then knock it over, and we feed a little bit out and knock it over more. Well, we can't just feed a little bit out here. We're right up. We've got the back of the halfpenny is hard up against the anvil here. So we know we can't do that because there's nowhere for the material to bend into. And already we've got a huge difference in where the neck starts and the point of support on the anvil. That's just not going to work for us. And that is compounded by the time we add a little gap in here to give the scroll somewhere to move into. Well, now look at the distance here. So if you were to scroll that, you're going to end up with a flat spot right here in this neck. The other thing is I want you to treat this, the halfpenny, just the same as you do with the ribbon scroll. I want you to hit the end of the bit that you're going to scroll, which is right here. I don't want any blows forwards of that transition part. If you do that, you're just going to put a bend in the neck. So if you've got a bend in the neck when you make these, that's what's happened. You've come too far forwards with your hammer, you've hit it, and you just put a little kink in what's already a nice transition. What we want to bend is this straight section back here. So I was doing all very good with this yesterday until my camera died. So bear with me. This is just a screenshot with my iPad. This is a jackhammer bit, and I just drew it out and bent it over a little bit. And I want you to notice that I've made a concavity in the end there, and I want you to see how that I can put the scroll in and it fits in to that neck. So now I can bring a hammer in here and I can actually start to scroll this around a little bit. So I don't care. I've got a method of making these. I think it's in the green book, a scroll starter, or you can just chunk out a bigger piece of steel, just bend it tightly. You don't want to create a springboard, you want an anvil, and then just make sure that you've got enough clearance that you can get your halfpenny into the back there. And I believe that's me. Let me, yeah, that's.
Well, I'm wondering if we should do some of Cathy's homework and make a little checklist of how to assess these. So anybody want to throw something out there?
It's either right or it's not.
Or that. Mark says it's okay. Mark says it's not.
I see
Yeah,
a lot of teardrop shaped ones that come in.
So round.
Yeah, let me go back to my presentation again. He says, hopefully. Where is it? I'm going to end it and then start it again. When we come here, if this is too open, when you hit this, it's just going to roll out. If this is too closed, when you hit it, it's going to make a crease at the neck. So this is definitely an experience level. I would get them to make a few up to this stage and then just do 3 or 4 of, let's bend it and let's have a look at it and see where you are and see what the result was. A lot of people can look at a thing, but I don't know they're actually seeing it. So you sometimes have to point to this is what you did and this is your result. Can you see that? And now let's try it very quickly because we've got one more in the wings. Now let's try that and do it, whatever is that you're recommending, and then look at the result and see if they can improve it.
I second that. I think that's something I particularly struggled with in the beginning. They say, well, here's the shape you're going for. And especially when you're first approaching the skill, you're looking at it, but your lens is so different. Like I always joke when my husband and I watch football, we're watching 2 different games because his skill level is so much, deeper that he sees something different than I do. So I appreciate having those details. Here's what you're looking for here, there, this, as I was taking notes, things about also what you're looking to not have was really helpful.
Yeah, and this is an expensive scroll. This and the beveled scrolls, they're expensive. If somebody's buying these, and to be honest, they're the only way that we can compete with the people who are mass producing these things, King Architecture or whatever they are, is because they generally don't do the halfpenny, they don't do the beveled scrolls, etc., because they can't. They require a certain tooling up, a difference. And so our difference is the ability to make this. And so as a professional, if we were getting into this, then if I were to go and bid on a scroll job, then they're going to get something like this, because I don't want to compete with that factory out the catalogue look. I want this to be something that's definitely blacksmith.
So we've got round. I heard no cracks in that crevasse. What else would be on our checklist?
A taper all the way through. And that is important because sometimes these are not scrolled past just a 180. You will sometimes see that end. JC, I've got you in a minute. You'll sometimes see that end as you're looking at the scroll. Go ahead with your question, JC.
Oh no, I was going to add to Victoria's checklist. The other one would be how clean the twist is. If they rounded and softened everything enough so that it could twist into a clean, hideable thing with no creases or hot lips from trying to fix the square.
So you saw my my twist, and it looked fairly obvious, didn't it? I actually took a lot of time to try and make that as round as I could, and that's still the result I got. Because I'm presenting to you guys, I want it to look good. So I think even though you can spend a bit of time to make this round, you're still going to have some evidence of the twisting once you've twisted, but it will forge out. You just got to know that you've got nice soft edges there, and they're just going to go away.
I'd add a nice negative space to our checklist.
Yeah,
Okay.
it must look like an eagle's beak.
Okay. So I've got round, no cracks in that crevasse, or whatever we want to call that. I think Paul called it a crotch, but that feels a little weird. Taper from tip back to parent stock. Negative space, eagle's beak.
Comment.
And I think as Cathy said, you've got to give these students, this is a hard scroll. There's no way of candying. sugarcoating that. This is a hard scroll to learn. So you've got to give them permission to have a go and fail. They've got to give themselves permission to have a go and fail. So you're going to be make one of these, cut it off, make another one, cut it off, make another one, cut it off. And if they happen to make the best one that you've ever seen, fine, just do one on the other end. But it's all about repetition. So they've got to have a go at this. It's a difficult scroll to get good at. I don't know that mastery comes into it. I'm not mastered it yet. I still get one or two that go cattywampus. So
Comment.
What's that, Giovanni?
I think I acknowledge what Mark has said about this is a difficult scroll, but I think it can be a very daunting scroll to learn and to teach. I would not myself be very comfortable trying to teach this particular scroll without a lot of homework, as Cathy would say.
Yes, it's one you practice quite a bit.
Yeah, you make about 20 of them, and when your last 5 all look consistently good, then you know you can make it. And it's nice to have all these steps to really explain what did you unconsciously do that you really need to consciously tell your student to do.
I think the big thing for me is when you're making the lozenge, don't take it to 90 because you're going to get a crack. And then when you do flatten it, do the inside one first, pushing the ball away, which is opening up a soft crack, if you will, before you hit the outside one and close the crack or the cleft, whatever you're going to call it. So you start on the inside one, move it out, the outside one, move it in. Happy to go back to the slides if you want to see that.
Yeah, that I would like to see that again. That's a big takeaway for me for this.
Let me.
So the first time while he's pulling that up, I'll tell my sad little story. Like I had these down, or at least as down as I was going to get them to teach them. And the first time I taught them, the whole thing collapsed, which hadn't happened in my practice. So yeah.
So you set this down. It's open of 90.
Oh, I don't see it yet, Mark.
Oh, sorry. I'm ahead of you. Let me get out of here.
Only you can see it.
That's okay, Victoria. I was teaching. Does everyone else teach the fire poker with the heart on the end?
No.
No.
No, it's where we fold it over and do a weld and then flip it to make a heart. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
had just finished the whole weld and I held it up to the students and the whole thing just fell off. There was an occlusion or something in the metal. It wasn't a bad weld. It just sheared off. And I'm just standing there going, okay, well, let's see how we can move on. And I
You
did,
had no heart. See, that's good. Those are good stories to hear. Okay, Mark.
Okay, so you can see if I look at this, bear in mind I'm not dealing with the flat face of the anvil here. I'm dealing with the bar. So if I project up, my 90 degrees, I'm somewhere here for my 90 degrees. So I'm open of 90 degrees. I set this down, and that's going to give me these. So I've made square at this stage, and now I need to go to octagon and round. So I need to get rid of these two corners, either this one or this one have got to go away. In setting this down, I will have created a somewhat of a flat at the back here because that's a big, powerful move. So I've probably got something that's a little misshapen right on the bottom here. So I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to hit here. And if this moves relative to the shaft, it's going to open up this, which is at this stage somewhat soft. If I worked on this corner, I'm going to roll this ball in and I'm going to make that sharper. So if I did this first and then came with this one, when I hit this one and it moves, it's going to crack right here. So for me, it's important that I hit the inside first, take care of this corner. It's the inside one first, take care of that corner as well as, once those are nicely done, then I work on the outside corner.
So I have just a couple of scrolls that I've picked up off the grounds in my travels. I know I said it'd be an hour. We're a little over that. However, if we're still enjoying this, why don't I share those and I'll show you the checklist that I typed as we talked, and let's see how they stack up. Now, some of them I only took a side view, so we're not gonna be able, I have them sitting right here, so we can hold them up. I can hold them up and we can examine them further. But so far for our checklist for the penny scroll, and Cathy, weigh in on our homework assignment here. Round, no cracks in the crevasse, taper from tip back to parent stock, and the negative space mimics an eagle's beak. Okay. Anything else we want to add to that?
When I look at my notes, I think it's caught by the eagle's beak, but also just not having that kink from the neck to the penny.
No neck kink.
No kinky necks around here.
Okay, no neck kink. So then I've got this little guy. I gotta find them here. Oh, which I think is this one. So if we look at our checklist, I don't know how to put them both up on the same spot. Is it round?
Well,
Almost.
can I chime in on that one?
Yeah.
That one is just not finished. So that flat spot right at the top of the round, yeah, right there, one hammer blow from making that thing round, killing it.
Yeah. So I'm finally tracking. They're gonna whack it here. It's gonna push that out with the
Yeah.
rounding hammer.
Now, where they hold it on the anvil, this is again, it's a learning experience for me because we've got a taper. So they can't just put this on the anvil, because if they whack this, they're going to twist it. So they're going to have to put this on the anvil and keep this somewhat off the anvil, maybe. They're just going to have to be a little coy. But I'm trying to give them more optics. I want them to look at this and know that they could have fixed that. They didn't need to bring it to me. If they just look at this next time, they'll know how to fix that.
Okay. And then, so taper back, they have that, they have a number, they definitely have that eagle's beak going.
Yeah.
And no neck kink. Okay, excellent. Here's the next one. And that's this guy. And this one has a pretty good crack on the one side.
I'd say
Started.
that one's even less round adjacent.
Lozenge.
Yeah, it's like this didn't get smushed enough this way.
That's what I'm saying. It's still all there. They made a good effort. The two, if you look at the top and bottom, the north and south, look not far off uniform. I don't think they smushed the lozenge down far enough.
Mm-hmm. And they are starting with really big bar too, but they've got a taper going.
Yeah, and again, giving them that language of being able to see, I want them to see this, excuse me, and see that they worked okay on the first two sides, that those are curved and reasonably uniform. Remembering I didn't dress them until I started smashing this, so I think that's reasonable. It's just that they didn't do the lozenge good enough. So the first two steps, fine. Let's work on making that lozenge seat just a little further.
Okay. Anything else on this one?
That's not bad, is it, really?
Mm-mm.
Little crack right there at the neck, but not much.
Yeah, it has the little crack, and sorry, trying to find out which one it is. It's got the nice taper working. It has a little crack that we can see on the screen here.
Now, question, what caused the crack?
bending past 90.
I think so. And I'm looking at that because that crack is going perpendicular to the edge. So I think they rolled it in too much and then rolled it out.
Do you think there's a little bit of an overbend here?
Yeah, but they can fix that a little bit. You know, there's some scrolling pliers or something on that. But the issue they're having with the shape is not bad. Again, they're just the one hammer blow from making it right, just at that far right hand side of the disc. Yeah, they could have just hit that one more time with a rounding hammer and blown that out.
Out it goes this way.
Yeah, so I think it was just that for me, the order of operations, they closed the disc and then opened it as opposed to open it and then closed it when they were knocking in the corners from setting it down on the lozenge.
Yeah, so they did they knocked down their lozenge, which worked well, but then hit maybe inside first and then outside and then had to the outside and then inside and had to fix this.
Yeah, or they may have left a little bit of mud under the wheel and that mud has got crushed and is making the crack, or both. You know, it could be a bit of both.
Because it is a little thick there, huh?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then I got one more. Oh, went too far.
Somebody else want to have a go at this?
They didn't clean up the corner enough. It's a little round there in the inside.
And a crack, huh?
Yeah. I think they left mud under the wheel.
Hmm.
A lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
Is it thinner around that crack? Is that why? Did they maybe hit right around there a few times and it's a little flatter there and that's why it's a little wider?
It actually looks like the bend should have started. I'll do it on here. The bend should have started here and it got rolled into it.
Hmm.
This might have been also what Mark, could this have been where they're striking too far out on the penny when they're trying to start their scroll?
It looks like it to me. So it may be one
They're
of,
hitting here.
yeah, they could have done a couple of things. The neck is thick, so they may have left too much. And then yes, they may have hit too far out. They didn't just hit on the straight section, but they actually hit on the penny finial. So I would want to probably look at this one again, have them make another one, and when they get to the stage of scrolling it, I want to see it.
Okay.
But not a bad effort. I mean, they've got it. It's all there, isn't it? Just a question of tweaking it.
Yeah, because it's fairly round.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Figuring out which step they messed up on.
Yes.
Order of operation.
And it's definitely tapered to the end. Okay, that's all I had.
Those are nice photographs. Yeah, that's very good.